Today, we're not just going to talk about money. No, we're mapping the human experience of wealth, from that suffocating math of having zero all the way to the strange, isolating quiet at the very, very top. And this whole journey, it doesn't start with millions. It starts with a single, very real number.
So, picture this. It's 11:43 at night. You're lying on a mattress you probably got secondhand, and you check your banking app. $1,247. And that's not your savings, that's your everything. You check it again a minute later, yep, still there. And that number is standing against, 31 grand in student loans and a credit card that's creeping over 4,000. Every trip to the grocery store becomes this frantic mental math, The good olive oil, yeah, that goes right back on the shelf. And that quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's not some Hollywood drama. It's just a quiet, constant anxiety, a background hum. See, at this level, money isn't a tool that you use to build a life. It's the air you breathe. And you're never quite sure if you're getting enough, or if maybe you're already suffocating. So our first stop is right here in what we're calling the hum of zero. And the first rule of this place is really simple. Your relationship with money is 100% emotional. It's all governed by fear. But what happens when you make one tiny decision that isn't based on fear, but on, a little bit of hope? You decide to pay off a small credit card, $1,200, and the moment it's done, you take a screenshot of that zero balance. You don't post it anywhere, you don't text it to anyone, because, how could they possibly get what that means? But to you, it means everything. Because for the very first time, a number moved in the right direction because of something you did. And that right there, that's the beginning. That one victory, that screenshot of a zero balance, it's so much more than a number. It's like a crack of light in a dark room. It is the first step across a massive psychological barrier, not into wealth, not yet, but into the first real taste of breathing room. Okay, so now you're 26, and for the first time in your entire life, you see 5 figures in your savings account. $10,000. For the first week, you just keep checking the balance, not out of anxiety anymore, but out of this pure disbelief. The psychological weight of that number is just completely out of proportion to what it can actually buy. You feel like you've leveled up, like you've become a different kind of person. And this moment right here, it illustrates maybe the most important mental shift in this whole journey. You start to invest, just a little bit, maybe. The market dips, and your old lizard brain is just screaming, "Sell, get it out!" But you don't. And in that moment, the mindset flips. You stop seeing money as just safety, as this thing you have to hoard. You start to see it as information, as a tool that responds to data, not to your fear. So now you're doing everything right. You're maxing out the 401k, you've got the emergency fund. You are stable. But one night, you get curious and you run the numbers all the way out for the next 40 years. And the final number, it's fine, it's enough, but it's not what you want. This is what you call the competence plateau. You've gotten really good at surviving, but you haven't yet learned how to build. Now, what's so interesting is the realization that comes next. This is the second rule of the journey. A salary feels like this safe, secure floor under your feet, but once you really look at it, you realize, it's actually a ceiling, and it's limiting your potential. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. So you start a side project, just a little thing you do on weekends. At first, it makes like $400 a month, then $900, then $1,700, and you pour every single penny right back into it. You don't upgrade your life one bit. And pretty soon, you start to feel this gap opening up. The distance between where you are and where your salary alone could have ever taken you. And that gap? That's leverage. And this is the moment you truly understand what an asset is. Not some textbook definition, but as a real physical thing. It's something that works for you even when you aren't working. And that just fundamentally changes your relationship with time. Every hour you spend on something that doesn't compound starts to feel like an hour the machine isn't running. So you keep building. The numbers climb past 6 figures. You're making smart choices, you're taking calculated risks. And then, one completely ordinary Tuesday, it happens. You finally arrive at the destination you've been chasing for years. But the feeling, it's not at all what you expected. Explorer, your brokerage account updates. $1,040,000. You just sit there with it. You expected, a lightning bolt, fireworks. Instead, there's just this quiet satisfaction, and it's followed almost immediately by a second, much clearer thought. It's not enough.
Not in some greedy way, but in a totally practical one. $1 million, if you follow the safe withdrawal rate, that's 40 grand a year. That's not freedom, it's a starting point. And this is the real identity crisis. It's not that you're unhappy, it's this dawning realization that maybe happiness was never actually the goal. You have to admit it to yourself. The milestone wasn't the destination. It was just proof of concept. Proof that the machine you built actually works. So if the first million is just proof of concept, what happens next? Well, the entire texture of the game changes. You stop focusing on just accumulation. You start thinking about strategic positioning. You are no longer working for money. You are moving capital. Life at this kind of altitude is weird. You realize money is just another resource, like time. But you start noticing other things too. You notice that conversations with old friends become imprecise, that people assign these huge meanings to numbers that just don't hold that same weight for you anymore. So you stop looking at what wealthy people buy and you start studying how they think, and you realize why you get invited into certain rooms. It's not a courtesy. It's because you are now genuinely useful. And this leads us to the fifth rule, which is a really powerful one. Above $10 million, your reputation itself starts to generate returns. It becomes its own asset, working for you in ways that have nothing to do with your day-to-day decisions. This altitude brings a whole new kind of power, and with it, a new kind of moral complexity. You find yourself as an investor in a company that lays off 140 people. 5 years ago, this would have felt morally complicated, a real struggle. But now, you review the capitalization table, you see the company's margins improve, and your position increases in value. You don't feel good about it, you don't feel bad about it, you just feel the distance, the growing gap between your decisions and the real-world consequences. That distance, it has a price. And that brings us to the final stage of this journey. Because the real story here was never just about the money. It's about the unspoken cost, what you trade for it along the way. At $80 million, the problem isn't loneliness, it's translation. Your reality, the things that fill your mind, like dynasty trusts or regulatory positioning, capital structures, they just don't translate to the people who knew you before. Your entire context is now fundamentally untranslatable. Your closest friends are now other people at the same altitude, not really by choice, but more by a natural selection of conversation. And here it is, the final rule of the game. Above 50 million, the money is no longer a scorecard for you. It's not about your value or your success anymore. It becomes a tool that measures your influence, your power, your reach into the world. It stops being personal. It becomes systemic. But here's the thing. While you're sitting in a boardroom that literally calibrates to the questions you ask, somewhere in that exact same city, there's a 24-year-old standing in a grocery line. He's checking his banking app, and his balance is $1,247. He thinks this is a story about money. He has no idea yet what the real cost is. And that's the ultimate question this whole journey leaves us with, isn't it? What does it truly cost to travel from that grocery store to that boardroom? Not in dollars, but in distance. The distance that opens up between who you are at the beginning and the person you have to become to reach the end.